Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Takes from the Lakes podcast. I'm your host, Nash. Unfortunately, not joined by James today, but we do have a very special guest, a pitching scout for San Francisco Giants and a former MLB pitcher, Mr. Dan Murray. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Nash. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing good. We're excited to have you on.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, could you just real quick give us a little bit of an intro about what you do for the Giants?
Yeah. So basically, I travel around the country and I look at pitchers and try to get high-speed video of them, and we do reports on them. We grade them out, and we get them ready to put them on our board for the draft.
Awesome. So, having been a pitcher yourself, like what sort of things are you looking for that make sort of a good prospect?
Yeah, you look for the normal things, the tools, the fastball, the breaking ball, how much control does he have? How big a guy is he? Does he have good mechanics? Does he have a good arm action? All that normal stuff. I think when we really try to dig, we try to find out about their makeup. How good of a worker are they? Are they going to be a distraction in the clubhouse? Is their off-field behavior as good as their on-field behavior? Those are really, really important things that actually have a lot more to do than just the tools. You can have the tools and the fastball and the breaking ball, but without the makeup, it makes it hard to just find your ceiling as a pitcher.
Yeah. And then so the MLB draft, obviously way more drafts than looking NFL, NBA. So as you get into sort of later rounds, what are you looking at that might be different compared to sort of earlier rounds?
Sure. No, it's a very good question. It's different for every team and it's different for every round and every pick. But as you start getting later in the draft, you look for pluses. You look for a plus fastball. Does it have good characteristics? Are you looking for a plus curveball? You may be looking for a certain position or just a certain pitch. You might be looking for a starter. You might be looking for a reliever that throws hard. So you kind of put all these things together. You have them lined up on your board, and you try to pick the one with the best attributes that you're looking for, that your team's looking for, and hopefully sign that person to a contract.
Yeah. So the draft was very recently. And then in the first round, you guys took a two-way player. So that's obviously very intriguing. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so both with Bryce Eldridge this year and last year's pick, Reggie Crawford, we took two-way players, both very talented on both sides of the ball. This year's draft, he is a fantastic hitter. He's a left-handed hitter, very strong, very big. And when he's on the mound and he's feeling good, he throws hard. He has a good breaking ball, throws a lot of strikes. He's super competitive. We love his makeup. He's just a fantastic player all the way through. So we're looking forward to seeing him develop.
Yeah. Okay. So, there's been a lot of talk, especially baseball. The people I'm surrounded with that know a lot about baseball talk about the difference between lefties and righties. My high school had a 6'6" lefty who ended up being drafted this year, 12th round by the Padres. And then, we had a right-hander who ended up going to VMI, doesn't throw quite as hard, but was by all accounts a better pitcher.
Sure.
So,
Are you talking about statistically?
Yeah, I mean, he less runs, better whip.
Sure.
More innings pitched. So, could you talk about why sort of lefties are seen as much more valuable?
It may not have had to do everything with him just being a lefty. He might just have had more projection to him left. He might have. But as far as lefties, it's a different look. They seem to have a much better feel to pitch for the most part, and they seem to have a much more success getting guys out, only because it's a different look. You don't see as many lefties up there as you do right-handers.
Yeah.
So it's always good to get that different look, just as it is for a hitter. you want to face, as a hitter, you want to face something that you're used to, and you're not always used to seeing a ball coming from that side or a changeup tailing away from you, since there are more right-handed hitters and left-handed hitters. So it just adds a little bit of a advantage for the left-handed pitcher.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so looking at, sorry, I just got to pull up the notes real quick.
No, you're fine.
Could you just talk about a little? So the minor league path is very sort of unique again to baseball. Could you
Yeah.
talk about, how you draft guys on sort of a timeline, like whether you see a guy maybe making it to the MLB very quickly, or whether you see him maybe taking a while to develop in the minors? Is there any like sort of strategy to that, and how does the minor league sort of play a factor in the draft?
Yes, there's definitely a strategy to that. You may be looking for someone that can help out your big league club in the next couple years as a reliever. You may be looking down the line as a solid starter that will need some time to develop, learn how to pitch a little bit. Um, it's very individualized. We could think it's going to take somebody a long time to make it there, and they may fly through the minor leagues. And another guy that we think is going to fly through the minor leagues might need a little more time just to learn the way of professional baseball. It's very unique and very hard to predict at times. So we do a lot of discussions before the draft whether we think a guy is going to need an extra year in Arizona, or if we can start him out at a higher level. So those are all things we talk about, but it's very unique and individual to each player, and it could
Yeah.
happen at any time.
So, your jurisdiction is obviously within just the USA. But then, for international players, there is no draft. Could you speak about, there have been even some talks about that changing. Could you speak about that, how that affects sort of team building, like for teams that are looking to build internationally, especially with the amount of international talent?
Yeah, we have a great international department. They do a fantastic job of finding young players, which is extremely difficult. Think about you when you're 14 years old compared to what you're like now. And from 16 to what you're going to be at 21, these are huge differences in what you're going to be as a person and as an athlete. So they've really got to predict and project on each player. So it's a tough deal, and our guys do a fantastic job. As far as there being an international draft, I don't know the details on that. I don't know where they are as far as deciding whether or not they're going to do that.
Yeah. Um, And then just going back a little bit, so, obviously I think you were even at the game. The Giants most recently won the World Series in 2014. I think you were at my house when that game happened. Um could you talk a little bit about, obviously, Giants not a small market, but not a huge market either for baseball. Could you talk a little bit about like sort of the team building that went into that, and how you guys have been able to have continued success beyond that without huge free agent signings?
Yeah, we have a fantastic player development department. We can send guys over there with full trust that they're going to take care of them, develop them in a way that's best for the San Francisco Giants. Obviously, our main goal is to win World Series. We want to do it with the right people. We want to do it with our people, preferably. But sometimes trades are made because you've developed somebody in a way that makes them attractive to another team, and those trades are always helpful. As far as that run of 10, 12, 14 with the World Series, we just had a fantastic structure in the minor leagues. We had some great drafts that put some really good players on the field. And I might misspeak here, but I think at one time we had like 6 of the starting 9 were homegrown players. May have even been more than that at some point. But it was really fun to watch, and it's always a lot more fun when you know that the people within the organization that drafted them, developed them, and taught them are really rewarded when it's your own guys that are doing it on the field.
Yeah. Okay. Just looking at the minor league system that you guys have right now, You've got some very exciting guys. So Kyle Harrison, Carson Weisenhurst, both left-handed pitchers. Could you talk about
Wizen
maybe
Hunt. Yep. Yep.
Wisenhunt? Could you talk maybe about what you sort of like about those guys?
So Kyle Harrison is first of all, his makeup is off the charts.
Yeah,
This guy's one of the hardest workers. He's focused. He knows what he's about, and he's very young. He's just impressive to be around. Um, and he's been nothing but great for the Giants since we were able to sign him. He uh, he has an unbelievable fastball that misses a lot of bats, and a slider that's a great backdoor slider or back foot slider to right-handed hitters. He's competitive. He has talent. He has tools, but above and beyond everything else, he has the makeup that's going to get him there and keep him there, which is a really hard thing to do, is to stay in the big league. So he just has a fantastic repertoire, and he's getting better. He's still learning, which is the scary part. He's going to be a fantastic pitcher in the big leagues.
awesome. And then I've heard a lot of James talks about it some, where he says teams will keep guys in the minors who maybe have the talent right now to play in the majors. Is there any sort of truth to that, and any sort of like reasoning behind that in terms of player development?
So I'm sure there's plenty of guys in AAA that could uh, play in the big leagues at some point. I don't think there's any like plan. Hey, we're going to keep this guy in the minor leagues for any other reason, especially when you're trying to win. You want the best
Yeah,
talent up there that's going to help you win. You're not trying to keep someone away from the big leagues so that it'll benefit you 2 or 3 years down the line. You want to make sure that you can win now. So
yeah.
if a guy's ready for the big leagues and they can help us in the big leagues at that time, I'm sure. I mean, we've had a lot of guys called up this year, and they've done a fantastic job. The young players have really done well, and they fit in nicely with the veterans on our club.
So yeah, with the MLB not being salary capped, and with there no being no draft pick trading, you talk about always trying to win. Do you think that a lot of that sort of discourages the tanking that we see in other sports, or
Well,
do you
they've
think
they've
yeah,
yeah. I don't think there's as much tanking as you would think, or that we could predict. I think that we've done a good job with how the draft is run now, what they're doing to keep that out of the thought process as you finish your season if you might not be playing that well. So I think MLB's done a great job of kind of keeping that away from our game.
um okay, that's awesome. It's good to see one of the big three that's not sort of going down that path where you've got sort of 50-50 of teams who just aren't even trying, and then the contending
Right.
teams. um and then could you just speak a little bit about sort of your background as a pitcher? You played for the local Norfolk Tides.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure back when they were the Mets affiliate, is that correct?
Correct.
And
I went to college, was not recruited. I was lucky enough to get a dorm room that overlooked the baseball field, and I would watch them practice and play, and just thought, hey, I want to try out for this. So my sophomore year, I tried out. Uh, was fortunate enough to make the team. Went through a position change. I was all over the field: shortstop, second, outfield. Never played on the varsity uh, as a position player, but my pitching coach at the time, Rusty Filter, who's now the head coach at Santa Clara, saw that I had some arm talent, and he was nice enough to spend the time and to work with me and try to turn me into a pitcher. And then from there, the Mets drafted me in the 10th round in 1995. Um, I spent all the way through '99 with them. Was where I finished in Norfolk. Got called up briefly with New York, and then traded to Kansas City in '99. And then I spent a couple years up and down with them, and finished my career with the Texas Rangers in AAA. So I was
awesome.
very fortunate to be in the
Yeah.
right place at the right time with the right people around me to help out, including my parents and and the people that gave me the opportunity to go to school and try out for the team.
Yeah, I always thought it was a very cool path to the big leagues. Um, Sorry for the noise to those of you who are listening. Little little something going on back at the house. So next question being, there's been a lot of guys go top prospects who go to JUCO or smaller Division I schools, as opposed to other sports where that's obviously less common. Could you talk about that sort of pipeline with these powerhouse JUCO community college schools that
Sure.
produce MLB talent?
It's a really good question. It's a really good thought. I always tell, so let's start back in high school. Everyone tries to get into a college that wants to play, right? And where do they start? You tell me where they want to start. What teams? Division One, right?
Yeah.
SEC. Then they move down. Listen, there's a baseball team for everybody out there in college. You've got to find where your talent fits. If you believe in yourself and you're doing the things that you know are right, whether it's in a JUCO, a Division three, an NAIA, or a Division One in the SEC, then someone's going to notice that. And if your work ethic and belief system are that strong, then you'll be able to do the things you want to do. So we see all the time the kids that were passed over, then all of a sudden they go to 1 year at Division three, they get stronger. They start throwing a little harder. They start hitting the ball a little further. They start running a little faster. They get noticed by someone, then someone watches them. Then we start moving it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this guy's really developing well. He's got the makeup. There's talent everywhere. It's just it really relies on the player to get to the get to all the talent that he has in him. And the best coaches and the best scouts can see it even when they're not showing it on the field. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's called like projection. So when they're really good at what they do, which we have a lot of guys that are really, really good at what they do, when they scout, they can say, listen, I know what it looks like now, but this is what it's going to look like in 3 or 4 years, maybe even 5 years. And that's when you talked earlier about, well, is the guy going to be quick in the minor leagues? Is it going to take him a while in the minor leagues? That's all wrapped into this whole thing. It's a long process, but it's at the end of the day, when you make those 20 to 22 picks, depending on if you have some extra picks in the draft, it's really exciting. It's fun to say, okay, we got the guy we wanted. Now let's develop him. And that's why we love doing it, because we trust our development so much, our player development.
Yeah. So obviously, talk about great player development, as well as, sort of extra rounds in the draft, 20 plus rounds. With that and with the size of minor league systems, even though the MLB's cut back on it a little bit,
Sure.
is there anything that you maybe change? Does that allow you to take more sort of risks in terms of, projection, taking a guy who is a sort of a project?
Yeah, a lot of the times it depends on where you're picking in the draft, one, and two, it depends on really who's there. Sometimes uh, you're just really excited, like all of a sudden there's a guy there that you had no plans was going to be there for your pick. Um, we really have gotten fortunate. We've got some guys that are fantastic athletes, people, pitchers, position players. When we weren't expecting to. Um, but yeah, sometimes you'll take a risk on a guy, but you these are calculated risks. These are things that you talk about for a long time, that everybody's involved in, from the president on down to me to somebody else. I mean, everybody gets to say their part, and then you kind of put it all together, and that's where our scouting director is so good. He can take all these different voices and he can put it into one player and say, okay, this is where we can take him. This is what we'll give him. This is what we'll offer him, whatever it might be. But it's a very special skill that very few people have, and ours does.
Awesome. And then last question, there's a lot of sort of outside projections and speculation about the draft, even coming from what my partner and I do on the podcast. So how much of that, obviously teams want to keep their strategies sort of secretive. So how much do you think the public really can tell about a draft and about like a draft class?
I think there's always confusion because sometimes somebody will make it to your pick and you won't take him. And everyone's like, "What are you doing? This is the best one." He may have told us he wanted to go to school. He may have told us that he doesn't. He just wants to go back to school. Or he's not ready for baseball. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. So sometimes things are misconstrued, I guess is the right word. But there's a lot more than goes into it than just who's left to pick. And that's why you'll see in the draft, and I know you've studied it because I know you, that you'll see guys in the 11th round getting $1 million, or a guy in the 4th round getting $100,000. So those things always raise people's eyebrows, like what just happened, and it just has to do with what the organization is trying to do as a whole. And I mentioned our scouting director before, Michael Holmes. He has so many different voices that he's dealing with, whether it's me or the president or our GM or another scout, that he's got to put it all together. Then he's got to find out, okay, is this what we're trying to do as a team? Is this the type of player the San Francisco Giants want? And it's just very specialized, and it can be confusing to people at times, but we put in a lot of time in the room discussing arguments, agreements, and trying to get the players on the board in the right order of how we like them and how they'll benefit the Giants the most.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all of the questions that I have. If you have any other final thoughts or anything else you'd like to say.
Yeah, I got one for you. Have you thanked your mom and dad yet for getting you all this, to get help hooking you up and getting you through this?
Yes.
All the time, don't you?
Yes.
I miss you guys, man. I
Yes.
wish you were still out here in KC, but hopefully we'll be able to visit one way or the other if we come out there, or you guys come out here.
Yeah, hopefully.
You sure you don't have any other questions outside of baseball or within baseball that you would ask?
I mean, well, one thing, was there anybody from East this year who was any intriguing at all?
Not from East, but this year there will be. And there's also there's some players. There's probably 4 guys that have interest within the Blue Valley School District.
Okay.
And I know East isn't part of that district, but yeah, they have an interesting player there as well. So we'll kind of see how that goes. Can't give away the secrets right here, Nash.
It's true. It's true. Well,
are you playing this year?
I am not. I stopped playing after last year to play basketball.
Okay. Yeah, your dad said you got tall.
Well, not tall enough. I could always be taller, but
You'll be fine.
A little bit taller than him. But yeah, I think that's all of it. It's been awesome having you on. You're our first official guest on the podcast.
I tried to wear a collared shirt and look good, so when you're famous, I can say I look decent on your show. Is that all right?
Yep, it's great. It's great.
Because I know you're gonna kill it. I know you're gonna kill it because I know you. So you're gonna be fine, man. You're gonna do a great job.
I appreciate it. Well, It's been a lot of fun. And to the listeners, signing off on this episode of Takes from the Lakes podcast.